Okay, peace everyone. Art Morrison III here with another episode of the Third Podcast. Welcome back, all of you. This is episode 1, season 3. So, if you guys have been following, I appreciate you, but I'm sure you've noticed that we have been off the air since I think November 22nd was the last podcast that I shot. So I want to apologize to all of you for getting busy and focusing on other things and man, just leaving such a gap between podcasts or between seasons. But if you all don't know, today is March 21st and we are amid a coronavirus, COVID-19, as they call it, pandemic. And throughout this pandemic, we've been confined to our homes, we've been quarantined. So business owners like myself have to focus on our online presence. We have to focus on our online revenue and businesses, and not to mention we have a ton of time on our hands. So with the time that I've had on my hands, I've been inspired to start season 3 of the Third Podcast. We got a lot of good feedback on the first 2 seasons. I've learned so much. Some new things we're bringing to this season is that if you're watching this, you see that we are on video on YouTube. So each episode will be uploaded to YouTube. Every episode will feature, unless it's like a special edition that I need to immediately hop on, every episode will feature a special guest. Today's special guest, because we are in quarantine, so I can't have other people here, which we will do call-ins, but we can't have other people here. But either way, I'd still want this particular special guest to be my special guest. Cait McCready is with us. If you guys don't know who Cait is, she's my girlfriend. We live together and we conduct a lot of business together. So Cait, what's going on? How are you today?
I'm doing well.
All right, so Caitlin and I were in the kitchen cooking like 2 days ago, and we got into a really good conversation. It wasn't deep, but it was just a good, healthy conversation about where the world is going to be headed after this coronavirus outbreak and pandemic that we're experiencing, and if we think it'll ever go back to normal and all of that. And naturally, we dove into this conversation from a business perspective. So we probably talked for like 2 minutes about regular life and how this is going to affect us and blah, blah. But naturally, we went down a rabbit hole of how this is going to affect business and entrepreneurship and big business and small business and all that good stuff. So, Cait, do you have your tweet pulled up? I think that's a good way to start off this conversation, is for you to read that tweet that you tweeted out. Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, so read that tweet out loud, the whole series.
All right, so it says, this outbreak is going to change absolutely everything as we know it moving forward. Work, school, everything. It's important to get on the right side of things now before you're left in the dust. Your online presence is about to be essential, like it or not. Once I grasped the gravity of this situation, the first thing I thought was how businesses and schools are about to learn real quick how to work from home. It's 2020, no reason to be stuck in a cubicle for 40 hours a week. Not to mention the relief our environment is getting right now due to humans staying put. I'm aware this is a tough time for many, but I don't believe God makes mistakes. We are about to evolve in many ways, and I'm optimistic.
Yeah, so the word that stands out to me in all of that is evolve. We're definitely experiencing a worldwide evolution, not even as humanity, but we'll focus on business because that's the premise of this podcast. If there's any new listeners, you're gonna get a lot of business content on this podcast. It helps me to just soundboard to you all and brainstorm out loud and grow as a businessman and entrepreneur. So when you said evolve, I was just thinking I think I did a series of tweets because we have all the time in the world to tweet, but I talked about how I've learned so much about myself as a business person and my ability to innovate during this time when you're forced to innovate. I don't know if this is that exact definition of evolution, but it's the Art Morrison definition. The definition of evolution is essentially when you're in an environment where you're forced to adjust and your body or your whatever is adjusting, right? Adjust permanently. And I think that's what we're going to see in the business world, is a permanent adjustment to the internet, to, convenience, I almost want to say, like at-home convenience, whether that be like from an employer standpoint or like, so, all right, so first dive into because you came from a whole different perspective. I was thinking totally different when you were talking about big companies and what adjustments they're going to have to make in regards to their employees or staffing or whatever. Mm-hmm. So go into that a little bit.
My standpoint on...
Yeah, I mean, you were explaining how okay, big businesses are going to change their hours and
Yeah, so my first thought was because I worked with a big corporate company that's been around for a long, long time. I don't know how long exactly, but big companies are now, I believe, going to be forced to, make this change if they haven't already started. So this is something that we've seen, and people make fun of millennials for wanting to work from home, wanting to make their own hours, wanting to be more flexible. And I think that this is the perfect situation for the workforce to evolve into that style of working. And I think that, not only are big businesses going to have to test it out, but the workers are testing it out themselves. And this is what we've asked for. This is what we've wanted as employees, right? So now we get to go home. We get to prove like this is doable. This is something that we're capable of. And not only that, but like when this is over, say everything goes perfectly fine and businesses continue to run, employees are going to go to their companies and say, like, listen, we can do this. Like, we're able to work from home. I was
effective working from home. Mm-hmm. So what's the point of me being here?
Yeah, like, I've proven it. This is a case study, and I've proven that I'm able to work from home. So now what?
And me as a CEO, I'm always thinking the opposite end. So I'm looking at it like, well, shoot, after all this, I'm coming out of it like, hey, listen, man, we don't need you to come in. We don't need to spend extra money for you to have a desk here, or spend extra money to have space for you, or even whatever electricity and water you're using. Go home and use your own electricity and water.
Yeah.
And we can save money as a company, right? And I think that's going to overall stimulate the economy. But bigger than that, I think that is the shift that you're going to see, because even us as a company, like yesterday we recorded this podcast, but we had some malfunction. So we're actually re-recording it. But we went live when we recorded the podcast on Instagram, and we've never gone live before. And people consider myself and all of my companies as a very internet prominent company. Like, I get compliments all day from clients, from partners about our online presence. And even a company that, we have 20,000 followers on my youth basketball organization's Instagram, and then we have 14,000 on my personal Instagram. For those of you who follow me, you already know. And people are always like, man, you kill social media, your online presence and blah, blah, blah. And yesterday I can count on one hand how many times I've gone live between both platforms, my youth basketball organization and my own. So, over 30,000 followers in total. And I can count on one hand how many times I've gone live on both those pages combined. So there's always more room for growth in regards to the internet and leveraging not just social media platforms, but just online platforms in general. Like, in 1 week, how long have we been quarantined?
A week.
It's been like 2 weeks, really.
I guess since we've known about the virus and Cloroxed everything, but yeah, it's really just been a week.
Yeah, it's only been a week. So in that 1 week of quarantine, I've, forget the procrastination thing, because that's a whole nother podcast, but there's been things I've been putting off for a whole year that I've been able to attack, which is just kind of we can do another episode about like the blessings in disguise of the quarantine.
We have plenty of time. So.
Yeah, but my bigger point was like, I've had innovative ideas that I just didn't move forward with because it wasn't like maybe direct to revenue at that time. So I thought. So like, for example, my youth basketball organization, I'll just use them as an example because it's the most clear-cut example. We do like these Sunday workouts where 30 kids come to the gym and they all bring $15 with them, and we can make, $300, $400 sometimes in an hour and go home, right? So that obviously, as a boss, comes priority to like, well, I'm going to innovate this online training platform that I've literally been innovating since 2015. I'm going to do basketball training online. No one's doing this. And I literally shot the videos, and some are being edited now, and then all of a sudden this coronavirus hits, and it's like, man, I wish I would have had this thing grown and going for the last 4 or 5 years. That's just one example. We talked about that. We talked about social media. We talked about there's just so many ways. Like, TikTok is blowing up. You made a joke that TikTok started the coronavirus so they get more users,
right?
Which I'm sure they didn't start the coronavirus,
No.
but they definitely are benefiting from a user perspective from this pandemic. So like, when you look at all those things, there's no way, no one in their right mind is going to leave this coronavirus pandemic and go back to the way things were and miss out on all of the, and I don't want to sound greedy, but essentially all of the money that is left online and being spent online now. We're looking at DoorDash and Grubhub and companies like that benefiting from it. We're looking at, Panera Bread and Chipotle, who have their own in-house delivery on their own mobile apps, see more mobile app usage. They see more delivery rates, right? So,
which is fairly new.
And both of them were fairly new. Like this was like almost like a freaking marketing campaign for them. Like, obviously if the world was moving as normal, they wouldn't close their doors and say you have to do delivery. Right. So they would never get the opportunity to force people to use their delivery. Like we realized, man, Chipotle's app is the best app I've ever used.
By far.
Right. But I would have never known that if it wasn't for the coronavirus. We literally used the app sitting outside of Chipotle. We still opted to pull up to Chipotle until we read the sign on the door that said delivery only. You have to order from the app.
And I found more options in Chipotle in the app.
Yeah,
I found more options
than you even knew if you went inside.
Yeah.
So now we're like fans of the Chipotle app. So this whole thing, if there is a positive out of it, is literally like one big marketing campaign for online opportunities, companies, applications, right? And so we are trying to be at the forefront of all of that and innovate as well, which I think we're doing a good job of. I mean, even this podcast is like, why the hell did I go 3-4 months without recording any podcasts in a time where podcasts are the hottest thing out?
Because you're spoiled.
Absolutely. And that was kind of the word that we went with in regards to a theme yesterday, was like, everyone's spoiled. Like, forget the people who are spoiled and are still going outside, even though the government's telling you to stay inside so we can slow this thing down.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that.
Right. But we're all spoiled in regards to you can start a company, whether it's brick and mortar or whether it's a service like ours. And even so, I have, online apparel. And I make a good decent amount of money selling the apparel in person when we have our events. And we don't do as much revenue as we should be doing online. And why is that? We don't invest in online advertising. We don't necessarily invest in my apparel doesn't even have its own IG page. We don't grow our own audience around it. And these are all things I know I have in my notes that I should be doing. But then you're just not doing it because you're spoiled, because you're like, we're just going to sell them every time we have an event.
And we've said that because at the end of every, let's say, Sunday workout, kids love T-shirts. They're going to come, they're going to see the T-shirts, and this is what they do. They ask their parents for $20 and they get a T-shirt right there.
Yeah, but why not tap into both with just a little bit more of an investment of time, attention, and money? And now we have all the time in the world right now, right? And we have nothing else to pay attention to. And now all of a sudden, all of these new innovations are coming out. You might want to remove that also when it vibrates. It really affects us. We have all the time to innovate, and now we're innovating all these ideas that have been ideas for 5 years, right? Or they're even new ideas. What are some new ideas we came up with? I went live. I did a workout on live today, and now we're doing,
virtual training, online training.
Virtual one-on-one training, leveraging the Zoom app or whatever other app, or even our own mobile app. Right?
Yeah, so this guy gets DMs all the time in his inbox from people who just want to train with him.
Address me as such.
Arthur Morrison.
Continue.
Owner, founder of Above Max Basketball, head trainer, gets DMs all the time from people in different countries, people across the country here, in different states that he just can't do one-on-one training with. And we've never even thought about, well, let's just hop on FaceTime, hop on Zoom, and do
virtual training at a lower price point. And virtually train these people one-on-one at one price point. And then at an even lower price point than that, they can get like courses we already recorded or subscription model courses, which we did think of that. But man, this just forced everyone to think outside of the box. And me as a business owner, I'm internet savvy and all that. So I'm 100% not going back to the old way. I just learned 4 new avenues of creating revenue for the company.
It would be silly and a bad business decision to go back to the old way once this whole thing is said and done.
Absolutely. So real quick, we're 14 minutes in. If you guys don't know from last season, our goal is to keep our episodes between 20 to 30 minutes each episode. This way we can be your favorite podcast to listen to on your commute or when you're in the shower in the morning, or we want to keep it short and sweet and attentive. And with all that being said, make sure you share this podcast, leave a review, rate it. You can find this podcast if you're watching on YouTube and you want to listen to it in your headphones or in your car. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Stitcher is one that I found because I Googled my podcast and the first like 4 searches were Stitcher. So I guess Stitcher is a big platform people are listening to. I think I'm saying that right, Stitcher. But there's Stitcher, there's Spotify, there's Apple Podcasts, and there's Google Podcasts. Go ahead and subscribe to the third podcast by myself, Art Morrison III. Cait, real quick, where can people find you on Instagram, and give us a background of what you do before we go into our next part?
So they can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at the Cait McCready. So at the CAIT McCready MCCREADY.
So I'm Art Morrison III. I mean, most of you guys listening, maybe not. I can't assume that they know where to find me, but I'm Art Morrison III. My pages, Twitter, Facebook, everything is at Art Morrison III. That's ARTMORRISON III, as in the third, on everything. I spaced out because we forgot to put the microphone on the camera, but I forgot I was going to put this audio on that video. So it doesn't matter. That's why we clapped. Yeah. All right, so, man, I just lost my train of thought.
We just,
no. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So for everyone watching on video, and the cool thing about video is we're wearing your gear and we can show it off now. So
we didn't even plan this.
We can get more sponsors and whatnot. Like they're not paying us, so we got to get them out of here.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, so now we can wear, I don't know, cool podcast t-shirts. So this is, well, you tell us.
Okay, so this is my clothing brand for you watching on YouTube, and I guess you guys listening. My clothing brand has its own Instagram page. It's Current Situation Brand at Current Situation.
Yeah, you're a special guest, so the whole reason you're on here is for promo. You got a promo.
Okay, yeah. All right, so this is my brand. Art's wearing the Mind Your Own center stitched hoodie in black, and I'm wearing the Think Outside the Box cropped hoodie in black.
It's a crop.
Yeah, it's a crop. This one's for girls, but we have men's as well. Everything, for the most part, aside from our crops, is unisex. So we have probably equal parts men and women who purchase from the
We don't have any sponsors yet, so you're...
So I'm the sponsor?
Yeah, that's what I mean. So that was a little break for you to... It was 3 minutes, so it was kind of long.
Oh, okay.
We want to keep it to 30 seconds, so we got to get our 30-second pitch down.
Okay, so at Current Situation Brand on Instagram and CurrentSituationBrand.com.
Yo, that's great, though. So you have... that store is through Spotify, right? So
Shopify.
Oh, man, Shopify. Not to be confused with the music player. So that's through Shopify.
Right.
People can order your clothes.
Correct.
I have a Shopify, man. I have a Shopify store as well. I have one for Above Max Basketball. I have one for my own brand, The Third Apparel. Mm-hmm. But that's a prime example. Like anyone who's out there who's always wanted to do a clothing line, well, now is the perfect time to do it.
Yep, get it started.
I mean, I guess some people are still working. I mean, if you're working from home, and I'm doing air quotes for everyone who's listening. If you're on the camera, if you're working from home, I'm sure you have plenty of time. Because there's no pressures. I tweeted about this last night. There's no pressures of regular life. It really puts into perspective that time is relative. It's I don't know. I went on this whole Twitter rant last night that time, we always look at it in quantity, right? So in regards to time management, I feel it's important to have times when things begin and things to look forward to, but we need to stop quantifying time. We need to look at it I said, emotion. So when you're angry or you're happy, you're not thinking about how much happiness you have and how much you're gonna use. You're not rationing your anger. You're not thinking, okay, how angry am I? You just act on emotion. So with time, if we did the same thing, when you go on vacation, you have an initial thought of man, my vacation is on the 10th. Today is the 8th. I cannot wait until vacation. And then the minute vacation begins on the 10th, you're thinking about how long you have.
Yeah.
It's a countdown. You're thinking about naturally, even when I have a coaching session or a training session, it's okay, it started at 7, and from now until 8, I'm looking at the clock and how much time do I have? And I'm subconsciously, I'm not even in the moment. Right? I'm not even I didn't get to enjoy the moment, but outside of enjoying and all that spiritual stuff, from a logistics perspective, is you would perform much better if you cleared your mind of that concept of time. Just set an alarm. When it goes off, you're done, right? And you just do what you were supposed to do. So if your goal during that time was to do 60 minutes of something, then you're stressing yourself out. But if your goal during that time was, to learn or to teach how to do this move or to teach this real estate strategy, now that coaching session all of a sudden becomes enjoyable and you have like a real goal and not just to get through the 60 minutes, right? So back to the vacation thing, this isn't by any means a vacation, but this quarantine is very similar to where I'm not looking at the clock all day. Next thing I know, the sun's going down and it's time to leave the office, but I'm getting much more done because there's nothing after that's pressuring the current. And even if there was, it's still like not a pressure, if that makes sense.
It's funny though, because on the same wave, like people don't know how to handle not having time limits, time restraints, like people don't know how to handle right now the fact that we don't know when this is going to end, right? People are losing their minds because it's like, okay, well, is it April? Is it August? You asked me yesterday, when do I think it's going to be over? I said June.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I have no clue. And I think most people out there are losing their minds with the inability to know when this is going to end and how long they're going to have to be inside and all that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I mean, the thing is, again, not to get deep and spiritual, but it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it does.
But that's because that's how people live their life.
We've been taught for thousands of years that it matters.
Yeah, that's
You know what I mean? But now it's like, yo, I'm working from home. I can work at any time of the day, depending on your job. I don't want to pigeonhole people, right? But I can get stuff done at any time, at nighttime. But like, wait, I always could do that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like I always could. I don't know. It's just, it's an odd concept, but it's really eye-opening, this whole quarantine thing. And, you know, I think that with that, I hope we're not the only ones with our eyes open, is my point.
I don't think
so. We talked about employees, we talked about employers, we talked about big businesses, we talked about the government, right? We talked about everyone who should have their eyes open to this. They should have their eyes open to like cleanliness and world health too, because I just feel like as a country we're disgusting that we can have an outbreak like this, right? And it lasts so long. But from a time perspective, man, I think it's so important because even like my mom FaceTimed me the other day and we were talking and it was just the conversation was the same as every other conversation I've ever had, but it was such a enjoyable, or I don't know the word I'm looking for, but because there was nothing for me I don't have anything to do. Like I have plenty to do, but there was nothing scheduled. Mm-hmm. And even if there was, I didn't mind pushing it back, even if that meant it was going until 2 a.m. Because the next day, I don't have it.
Whenever you want.
Or even if I wanted to wake up, I could sleep middle of the day. So like, I learned that the restraints and concepts of time I was applying to myself. So like, it started taking away all the enjoyable, the family times, even when you think about when you get lunch. Whether you work a job or even when we're here at the office, we're entrepreneurs and we get lunch. I got to get back to the office to get stuff done. Yeah. When it's like, yo, what was stopping us from casually ordering food to the office, eating it casually, working casually, right? Okay, we need to stop and go to the gym or whatever we have to do. Okay, we stop, but then we can always come back to it anytime, whenever. We were in this twilight zone of like everything's in an hour block and it ends at 5 p.m. But then if you work nights, it ends, at 10, 11 because you need to sleep 8 hours and then you need to go to the gym and like, you know what I mean? It's like, you can still do all that without restraints. It doesn't have to be, I don't even want to say on a schedule because I don't want this to sound anti-schedule, but it's like, it doesn't have to be timed. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be like, timed. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, that rant is over. But listen, what else can we talk about before we wrap up? That's like a perfect 24-minute podcast episode.
Yeah, no, short and sweet.
Was there anything that we missed from last time?
I think we missed a few things, but I think it was its own. Like I
think this one was better. What did you think we missed? I did ask you when you think it'd be done.
Yeah, you also asked me what I've done that I didn't do before.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's not business, but I said prayer yesterday.
Oh yeah, prayer and meditation. That's huge. I said I didn't catch you praying, but I guess it's none of my business. That's between you and the Almighty. Yeah, you didn't catch me praying
because I didn't want you to catch me praying.
You hid from me when you prayed. Now prayer and meditation is huge, and you said that you think this thing's gonna be over around June.
I said June. Just that's literally a guess. I took like
that's like the safe
I
guess.
took the
like, not too soon, not
optimistic
too late.
and the very tragic answer.
No,
So.
exactly. I mean, I don't care. That's like my new thing. I literally was like enlightened yesterday to where like I just don't care about time. I don't like, yeah, we're kind of losing money, my companies, but like, are we? Right? Because what we're innovating now is eventually gonna make us more money. I don't know. It's just like I'm just so in tune right now, but I don't necessarily care when it starts back up. I know when it does start back up, it's gonna be a madhouse. It's gonna be a rush.
Yeah, hella emails.
Oh my goodness! If whatever company you work for is going to be mad annoying because they're all hype and had time to innovate like me.
Yeah.
But then they also got to get back to the regularly scheduled programming.
Man, this is going to change everything. I'm really excited for the change that this is going to bring. I'm not excited for what's happening in the tragedy that it's caused, but I am very excited for what it's going to bring, and I think it's just pushing us into a place where we thought we would already be by 2020.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. We said that yesterday. Like we thought 2020 was going to be flying cars and. Yeah. All that kind of stuff, but it's like, even this might be a stretch, a reach, but like self-driving cars, we kind of, we're like,
we played with it a little bit.
Yeah, everybody's like kind of against it, but now when you realize how much you get done,
that's a whole episode in itself.
When you don't have to drive somewhere, now it's like, oh, self-driving cars isn't a bad idea because now I can, I don't know, work on my way to the grocery store because now I'm working from home and
I lose so much time just by driving that I just can't be doing things.
Yeah, and like you don't, if you're a 9-to-5 worker and you're just used to going in every day, it doesn't matter to you because it's like, that's my peaceful time before I work.
Yeah.
But that hour could be you at the gym at home, at your home gym, and then you work that same 9-to-5.
Well, think about commuters into New York City who just take the train. They're always doing work.
Yeah.
They're always working on the train.
Yep. No, absolutely right.
So it's the same as if we had self-driving cars.
Yeah, there's so many industries. We talked about the stock market a little bit before, but there's so many industries that are going to benefit. I hate using that word, but benefit from this crisis.
Already have benefited.
Yeah, but I'm definitely excited, man. I'm excited whether it starts back up April 1st or whether it's August 1st. I'm excited just because of where it's put me in a mental space, and this time off it's like a time off, but not really a time off. So like you still got to get it in and figure out how you're gonna make your next dollar. You're not like on a beach somewhere and getting drunk all day. I mean, we're not.
Right.
Some people are.
Many people are.
But
go
look,
home. Just go home.
Right. Yeah. So everyone, look, continue to wash your hands. Stay away from people. Continue to wash your butt. Honor the 3 or was it 6 feet now? The 6 foot rule.
It's a 6 foot rule. It's been a 6 foot rule, yeah.
I heard 3 before.
That was the first thing we heard. But like, what's that doing?
Yeah.
I can still touch you. So.
I guess. So look, everyone, take care of your loved ones. Stay close. I'm not a scientist. So I don't know if this thing's gonna mutate or another strand will be developed. So we really never know how this thing is gonna go. But a way we can put an end to it is staying away from one another, staying clean, disinfecting everything. We talked about that too. That's hilarious. That like, oh no, there's an epidemic, so here's how we cure it.
Just by being clean.
By doing like simple stuff. It's not like take this pill, here's this vaccine, which obviously is gonna help when it's released, but it's literally like wipe down doorknobs and constantly touch items. Wash your hands constantly. Use hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Anyway, guys, that's episode 1 of season 3 of the third podcast. I'm Art Morrison III, your host for this season with my special guest, co-host for today, Cait McCready. Don't forget you can follow her on all platforms at the Cait McCready. That's C-A-I-T. What'd you say? The Irish way?
Yeah. Because Cait is spelled C-A-I-T.
Yep. So Caitlin, C-A-I-T-L-I-N. The Cait McCready, MCCREADY on all social media platforms. And I hope by now you know where to find me at Art Morrison III on all social media platforms. You can visit artmorrison3rd.com if you want to learn more about what I do and who I am. And you can also visit thethirdpodcast.com to check out more episodes and everything that this podcast is about. Don't forget to share. It's very important for you to share and rate this podcast right now because we really want to grow this thing so we can continue to spread entrepreneurial energy throughout the world. Nah, but seriously, subscribe to The Third Podcast on Google Podcasts, Spotify, not Shopify, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and my new favorite, Stitcher. I guess we should shout out Anchor too. We're on Anchor as well. I can't believe I Googled my podcast and it came up on Stitcher. I'm like, what the hell is a Stitcher? But like all the episodes were up there.
Yeah, I've never heard of Stitcher.
Well, we're about to do a little research right now. That's what happens when you got all this time on your
There you
hands.
go.
You can just research
Google
and just
University.
Google University. That's where I'm spending all my. That's one university that's not closed for the spring.
Yeah.
Guys, listen, I appreciate you all for listening. Love you all. Catch you next time. Peace.